So let's move on to the next section of this painting. If we take a look at what we've got so far, you've got a painting. If you was to chop the bottom section off, you have a picture. You have done a watercolour. It works. It's lovely. You've got distance, you've got recession, you've learned how to mix greys. But there's a little bit of seepage here. Can you see a little bits where the paint's snuck under the masking tape? Sneaky paint, and here as well. Doesn't matter, because right at the end, for the final section of this watercolour project, we're going to be painting in some reflections which will hide that. But before we do that, we're going to paint a boat for this next section. I'm going to put a nice boat here with a mast, a little bit of a sort of little mini sort of boat, if you like. We're not going to do any sketching, but we're going to paint it in from scratch with the size 6 brush. Now back down to the palette, we've got the colour, the strong grey. It's just about all there. But let's recap how to mix it again. So good thick blue, add a little bit of red so you get the purple, deep purple, and then little bits of yellow. Now if it goes a little bit brown like that, as it's got a bit of a brown tinge to that colour, a little bit of a brown tinge, we can add a bit more blue to it, and that will hide that perfectly. If it goes too green, add a bit more red. Again, with that size 6 brush, small super point brush, I'm rotating it as I wipe the brush over the edge of the palette. That's squeezing out the excess, but also it's giving me a lovely tip on the brush at the same time. Okay, so let's get a boat on. This will give life to the picture. I'm thinking somewhere here would work quite well. And enjoy this because it's quite a quirky little trick. What we're going to do is paint a figure of 8 or an infinity sign. It's going to come over like that. Now at this point you can decide what is the front or the back or the bow or the stern. I want to say that this is going to be the back or the inside of the cabin, and we'll block that in like so. So we'll just fill that in. So you've filled in one half of it. What we'll do next is we'll come to the opposite side and we'll put a little line pointing down towards the water. That's the depth of the cabin or the hull, and then we'll come down here, pop that on there. We're going to add a shadow which gradually curves in the corners. So again, it all comes down to shadows again. As we mentioned many a time, you can see that shadow going in. Now if you're thinking it's not looking very boat-like at the minute, it'll get there. Let's push the boat out, clean the brush, wipe it on tissue. So I've cleaned the brush really well here. Give it a couple of little wipes on there. You can see it's pretty clean-ish. And then we'll get close in. What we're going to do here is blend in that paint. That paint is thick, so there's no rush to do this. Thick watercolour is very easy to wash away. It's a fugitive thing. So you can go in with water and we can actually move that shadow. We can wash away that loop from the other side of the infinity sign here as well. So I'm basically using water here to refine it. Look how it's blending those shadows in. I'm resting on the page, I'm using water. If you need to add any more grey, just pick up a little bit of grey. So you get a smooth blend, a good smooth blend. Clean the brush as much as you need to. Wipe it on the tissue as much as you need to. As long as the brush is not dry, it wants to be damp for this. Okay, that's what we're talking about here, a damp brush. There you go. Perfect. Okay, at this point I want to come back to the palette and pick up some more of that colour. So we've got the grey here, and we're going to just give it a little bit of a wipe on some kitchen paper to remove the excess. On there. Back to the picture, nice and close in here. We can now have a moment, and we can just make sure that it's nice and dark. Maybe do a little bit of a point at the top there. Let's make sure it's nice and deep. Even darken the inside should you need to. Pop little bits on, little bits of things A little bit of detail if you want to. Even some lines to represent the sort of structure of the boat. We can also, with that same brush, start to add a little reflection of this. Made up of horizontal lines, like a mirror. Now if you notice that paint's going on quite speckly. It's going on speckly because it's almost run out of colour, and you can see those little speckly lines, which is what you call the dry brush. Now that, believe it or not, is a technique. So quite often when you do watercolour painting, you'll find yourself removing the excess paint on a bit of kitchen paper because it just gives this dry effect. The paper's got the texture, it suits it. What should we call the boat? Should we call it remlap? Let's call it remlap. Well, right, remlap on there. Obviously you can see that perfectly. That is Parma spelt backwards, by the way. Now let us go to the back of my easel. You wouldn't believe what's back here. I can't show you what's back here, but one thing I do have is a plastic card, literally a plastic card of some kind. Now you're talking a old credit card, a store card, a loyalty card, or what have you, a bus pass, a gym membership card that you've never used. We're going to use this and we're going to paint on that strong grey on the short edge, but not the whole edge, because it's nice to put a mast on. So what I want to do is I want to basically put this thick paint on about 2/3 on that edge. Now can you see that going on there, that beautiful? I'll give it a bit of a tilt there so you can see it better. That have a practice at this one before you do it. Make sure the paint's thick. So on that edge we've got some grey. Now it's only from there where my finger is upwards. It's not the whole piece of card. It depends on the size of your boat. Okay, brace yourselves. I'm excited for you. What we're going to do is put this on for the sort of mast of the boat, if you like. We're going to press it firmly. Now it won't be perfect, but it gives you a straight edge. Look at that instant satisfaction. I've got goosebumps doing that. Now that works really well, but what you can do now, that is a great way of getting a straight line. You can use the brush, the brush, and it's got the grey on it still. If I get the kitchen paper, this is the same piece of kitchen paper that we tapped the sun out. We're just going to rotate it over the edge of the tissue there to make sure it's nice and pointy, as you can see. We can now just, if it didn't go too well, you can just add a moment refining it a little bit, and maybe if you want to get any extra height on this thing, you could do that as well. You could even do like a bit of a rolled up sail. You know, it's been moored up for the night, if you like. So you popped a little bit of a rolled up sail on. Talking about it being moored up for the night, if your brush is nice and pointy, you should be adding a little bit of a rope down there so it don't drift off where the anchor is. And we're going to do something to make that look like it's reflecting, okay? So again, get that pointy brush on the job, a little bit of a ripply line, even reflect the mast, make sure you line yourself up for it. Like that, so you've got that little reflection of your mast. You can see it there, can't you? Just a little bit of rigging will finish the boat off nicely. Now, I want to rotate the board this way, like that, because it's easier for me to do rigging on the side. One thing you don't want to do is painting the complete rope. Practice your rigging, work with a dryer brush, which is taking away the paint from the thing there, from the tip on the tissue. Have a practice run and literally just go in and add a rope that just sort of flicks off to nothing. You don't want to complete the rigging. Can you see how that fades off? That's the most successful way to do rigging. Bring it down from the top here, like that. Even pop a few little bits coming up from the actual hull. Turn it the right way. You've got yourself a very successful looking boat there. Pop a little bit of a flag at the top if you want to, just to give it a bit of oomph. Or it might be a seagull, maybe, perched on the top. I think we need a bit of a rope down here. It's quite a satisfying thing to put little bits of rigging on these boats. Talking about birds, let's have a look at the sun, shall we? Shall we drop a seagull or a bearded chuff in the sky? Bring it in. Silhouetting, of course. Just that one bird. Look at the tiny gap between the two lines. Now that's it for that section.